are here.
We made it, as usual. Got a pretty decent topic to cover with you guys tonight. I got metric crap ton of email, and then I was only able to get it over my phone because I was grounded from my computers this weekend. Thanks to the girl who set up tonight's PowerPoint. So yeah, they told me that I was grounded and I was not allowed to work all weekend, which I did work, but just not the way you guys see me work. I did other stuff.
No.
Yeah. Always. Oh, there's always plenty to do. There's always plenty to do. So, but yeah, I was told you need a break from this court shit.
Right.
Yeah. Tell me something I don't know. All right. Kind of while we're going into this. This is pretty much the topic of tonight's PowerPoint. And I realize that this might seem just a bit vague at the onset, but I think you guys will kind of grasp this as we go along. Because you guys are pretty smart, contrary to what the other side says.
Right.
And whoops.
What is your question?
That's it. It's very interesting because the way that she laid some of this stuff out, it was kind of like she's like in my head or something. So I mean, it's just absolutely bizarre. But you know, gotta get this out here for got it in the groups, got it in send it out to one more page here that I specifically manage. Okay, that should about do it. And drop back into this bad rascal. There we are. Okay. So these are such cool graphics. Tonight on Kirk's Law Corner, along with yours truly. And bringing you another episode of Monday Night Law with your hosts, old Kirk Pendergrast over there. Send Kirk some love if you can, because we got a good show for you guys tonight. This would be a good night to kind of sit down and cuddle in and put a little lime in there with your Corona if that's what you're doing. So I know, too soon. I get it. I understand. But
oh, more of that fake news shit made up stuff.
Exactly. But I digress. And that, of course, is how you can donate to the projects here. I got the canceled checks back. That's the good news. Still waiting on the numbers, but I got the canceled checks back. So, hey, 6 of one and half a dozen of another, right?
Right.
What I'm waiting to get back is this letter here off to the right, right? This will say Department of State from the respective states that I've entered into, right? And of course, this version of the documents, I hope they can spell under right. Whoops. Sorry, Florida. Love you guys, but you missed the D there and under. And at the end of the fiscal year, we will get one of these, right? That shows your certificate of good standing and that your fees and everything are paid, right? Every company that does business in the United States, when you file your end of year reporting, you get one of these, right? So I'm exercising my political power and right to work, right? So anybody wants to question that, see page 17, section 7 of the Mason's Manual, right? That's one of those constitutional provisions that we always talk about, or actually two of those constitutional provisions that we always talk about, which is one of the fundamental reasons why it was so crazy easy for the judges to say, hey, we kind of like this loss prevention thing. We've heard of you guys. Here, you stand over there and we're going to pay attention to what you're working on because we want to see too. So, like,
Right.
okay, I don't object, right? Because like so many of you, I got nothing to hide. So the more these jackwagons attack us, the dumber they look. And of course, here's our lane, right? We got a lane and we stay right here in our lane. We don't deviate from that, right? So this is, one of the reasons why we definitively showed, hey, you know, these what was it? I think Nunez, what was it, about a week and a half ago, he came out and specifically said, yeah, these uh, not attorneys general, more like inspectors general, can readily prove their innocence, right? We're pretty good at this. So proving negatives, for lack of a better expression. So anyway, getting back to what's your question, right? Or more like, what kind of question do you wish to ask? Because remember, the first best way to enter into the body is through a question, right? You already know what the facts are. So what would your question be? Well, the first best question would be a question of law, right? Mine is, what law do you think you're following? Because this is a republic. So if you're following something that is not republican in either character or form, it is without standing, right? Seemed pretty simple to me. Next thing you know, you hear emoluments on pretty much every channel going across the, you know, going across the globe. Hence the reason we're in multiple countries. And the fact I can show my job in the private sector comes from this position, right? So knowing that my job when I actually had a life was to advise the board and advise the CEO or president of the company, right, as to what's going on in the company. You know, that's the reason I am a master of my craft, right? A master craftsman. And that's where these emoluments on the wall behind me show up. So, start with just the basics. If you're going to ask a question, right, you're going to ask them,
Yeah.
right, what is a republic? Do you know? Can you define it? Why or why not? Are you aware of the state's user's manual, Masons, Roberts, Reeds, Jefferson, etc.? Why or why not? Did you know the fundamental law and government was altered in 1996 with Sharia law violating the First Amendment? Why or why not? What are we going to do to remedy this most serious of problems? Right? So, again, you're not saying, what are you going to do? What are we going to do? I'm here to volunteer, guys. Right? So, these actors can get as mad at me as they want, right? So, is there even an assembled committee for oversight on that? Pick of that. Why or why not? you know I keep getting all kinds of emails about this CPS, child predator services, as one of our uh, mothers calls it, and I couldn't think of a more appropriate analogy. So, why not is there no oversight into that? You guys created it or somebody created it. Why don't we have oversight over it? I want to know, right? This is a republic. So if we're going to create a project, whatever the project is, You betcha, especially when it comes to kids, we're going to oversee that, right? We're going to crawl up somebody's ass with a microscope. Trust and believe. So here's the process. Starts on page 191 in the Mason's manual, right? So here's the basics of what a parliamentary inquiry, right? Questions of law, right? If you're going to ask a question of law in your state legislature, such as what law are you following, right? Goes through pages 192 and 193, right? Rules governing parliamentary inquiries, section 252. Section 253, requests for information from members, right? So you're going to request information from them. Guess what they're going to have to do? They're going to go find it, or they're going to put you in touch with somebody who can get you the answer, right? So, because that's within the scope and the authority of the emoluments of Congress. So, what ends up in happening is because you're asking an intelligent question, okay, when the other side says, "Oh, this is just a disgruntled litigant," well, I'm looking at a pretty intelligently written parliamentary inquiry here. Nice try, Mr. or Mrs. whoever bar member you think you are, right? And then, of course, there are requests other than parliamentary inquiries, and here's the criteria for that. So, as long as you can follow the letter of the law, right? And here's the process, okay? And remember, you're just asking for specifics on the law. What law are they following? Right? I've already figured it out, right? And hence the reason we do this show 3 nights a week. So, this is why when I go in and I start making my inquiries, it's like walking in and seeing cockroaches scatter when you flip the lights on, right? I mean, it is what it is. So, if there is such a committee, do you know the procedures of that committee that's assembled? Right? There's criteria for that. Starting with section 632, committee procedure, which is less formal. Okay. Reconsideration by committee, you've submitted something to the committee, they either denied it or didn't understand it, right? So you wish for them to reconsider it upon clarification. Would that be a finding of fact or a conclusion of law? Authority of committee with reference to measures, right? Because you're saying, look, here's the measure, right? We already know the fundamental law was altered. The measure that I want is, the remedy that we're here to discuss, which is how we rectify this problem. So, and of course, what is your standing? Why should the Congress comply? How much does any one of them really know about what's really going on? What good can come from assembling an oversight committee if the end game is repeal? Right? That's an intelligent question, if you ask me. So, what would the rules in reporting look like? Right? If you want to participate, I don't think anybody's going to bust your chops if you want to participate, right? Just make sure you're doing it lawfully, correctly, right? Following the process. Here's the process, right? Up to and including how to recess. So do we need to have rules for saying, "Hey, can I go outside and play on the play recess on the swings?" You know, just kidding. But or stick your tongue to the flagpole.
Right?
So so let's get into the question, right? This is from Jefferson's, right? What is that? Section 39, I think is what that is in Roman numerals. So the question is to be put first on the affirmative and then again on the negative. So that explains my litmus test, right? The affirmative in the positive and the negative, the double negative, right? This is the origins of how to present such a litmus test that finds its origins in coordinate geometry. So, again, this is dad bringing his briefcase home, right? And saying, well, this is where all this stuff comes from. And here's the history as to why we do what we do. So, after the speaker has put the affirmative part of the question, any member who has not spoken before the question may rise and speak before the negative be put. Okay. So again, you're going to bring up the positive, then there's going to be a pause. Somebody can request information about what it was you just presented, right? Because it is no full question until the negative part be put. So before you get into the negative, you have to answer questions as to the affirmative, and then you can move on to the negative. Okay, so that's pretty much kind of the short version of how that works and why. Okay, so again, it's one thing to know how to do it, it's another reason to know why it works the way it works. So, and um, so, but in small matters in which are, of course, such as receiving petitions, reports, withdrawing motions, reading papers. Oh, does that mean reading means reading?
I was waiting for that. Reading papers and etc.
I
There's
hate to be the
petitions are supposed to be read in
right.
the order of the business for the day, according to the
Imagine
rules of procedure.
exactly. So hate to be the bearer of bad news for that dude, but reading does mean reading, man. I hate, just we keep stumbling back there. There's even a whole section on this in the book, right? The reading of papers, the first reading, the second reading, the third reading, the whole bit. That's why
Yep.
when he came up with that reading doesn't necessarily mean reading, I almost fell out of my chair laughing. So, so anyway, the speaker most commonly supposes the consent of the House, okay, where no objection is expressed and does not give them the trouble of putting the question formally, right? So, again, if we're going to make a political argument, right, just like as if you'd be making any other kind of argument, judicial argument, whatever, there's process and there's rules for that. Okay, so because these things, this is all stuff used to be taught in like grade school. You know, remember the days of debate club, right? These are the types of things that were taught in those clubs. So we have this what section 36, as it skips around a little bit in the book, but we have division of the question. Okay, this is if a question contain more, that's actually supposed to be a p, more parts than one, it may be divided into two or more questions, right? Questions of, so for example, you have a question that contains both a question of fact and a question of law, right? Or two questions of law or two questions of fact, right? So one question of fact may be directed at one specific set of actors, set of men, or whatever, and the other question has to go somewhere else, right? So are these things well enjoined or should they be separated? Well, again, this is how we break these things down. This is that process. So, um, but not as the right of an individual member, but with the consent of the House, right? So, again, this is bringing the question before the body, before the quorum, for who is to decide whether a question is to be complicated or not, right? Again, we've said keep it simple, right? Where it is complicated, into how many propositions it may be divided. Again, separate questions need to be asked, right? So, is this going to be maybe part of this has to go before judiciary? Part of it has to go before finance. Part of it has to go before foreign affairs if we're talking foreign emoluments, right? So, that's why I said, what kind of law are we talking about? Because if this is foreign law, this has to go to foreign affairs. So, again, you know, me being me, not doing anything small. so, so anyway, moving forward here, the soundness of these observations will be evident from the embarrassments produced by the 12th rule of the Senate, which says if the question in debate contains several points, any member may have the same same divided. So whether it's the House or whether the Senate's dividing it, the House sends it over complete, and the Senate says, well, maybe we should divide this up between the multiple, between different committees because of something that we know that maybe the House doesn't know, or vice versa, right? So anyway, just kind of give you an idea of how these things get divided and then reunited and then divided again. I know I've watched this happen so many times. I call it, ever have one of those ideas that sounds better in your head. So, in so 1798, and what is that, May 30th, the Alien Bill in quasi committee, let's see, to a section and provision, it's supposed to be provision or provisio, I guess, hard to read, in the original, had been added to, had been added two new provisions by way of amendment. So again, are we talking, what kind of alien are we talking here? Are we talking about something from the Space Force, or what are we talking about? So, on a motion to strike out of this section as amended, the question was desired to be divided. Okay, so again, this section, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but this goes in and discusses the way to divide questions. I mean, there's ways to do that. So why one question goes in one section and one question goes in another section. So the same bill being before the Senate, there was a proviso that the bill should not extend, right, to any foreign minister, foreign emolument, to any person to whom the president should give a passport. Oh, okay. Now we're getting into those foreign emoluments, right? To any alien merchant, right, conforming himself to such regulations as the president shall prescribe, and division of the question into its simple elements was called for. Right? It was divided into four parts. The fourth taking in the words conforming himself, right, and C. It was objected that the words any alien merchant could not be separated from their modifying words conforming. So, again, even in the bare text of the book, right, we're still dealing with these foreign emoluments. That's why I said, you mean to tell me in 230 years, nobody's actually properly taken the foreign emoluments clause before the court and defined the son of a bitch? Are you kidding me? What the hell have you been doing? Oh, and the answer was trying to right out from under us. I guess that pretty much clarifies the question, right? So, again, you're talking about what kind of law? Why is this foreign law here in my republic? Can somebody explain this to me? Why or why not? Right? So, if you're going to go in and you're going to make a question, right, you should know the process on how to make a question intelligently. So, by the time you get to the court, right, which is why I keep getting granted standing because, oh, yeah, I'm pretty good at this, right? I've already brought the question before the body, right? We already went through the SMU impeachment process, which didn't work out so well for the other side. I won't say who the other side was, but you guys pretty much know how that all went down. So when a question is divided, after the question on the first member and the second is open to debate and amendment. So again, you can't answer the second question until you get to the first question. So if they're going to divide the questions, right, you want to make sure you put the questions in a proper order. Usually, could that be in reverse order in the time frame in which they happened, right? So it's possible because remember that if the cause of the thing causing is the cause of the effect, well, we need to look at the effect before we look at the cause. That's one possible, right, way of looking at reversing what it is these bad actors did and why. So, this is how we talk about. I utilize the principles of the associative principle of math of addition and multiplication. Doesn't matter what side of the equal sign the equation is on, the operation remains and the answer remains the same, no matter what. It's just, it is what it is. It's always been that way, fundamentally and principally. So that is the perfect logic, right? So, section 37 on coexisting questions. So, again, we've talked about dividing questions. Now, are there questions of coexisting questions? So, and one such example would be this finding of fact goes with this conclusion of law. So these things coexist, right? Maybe they should be incorporated or included, right, together. So this process helps you set up criteria for reporting, by the way. So once you've assembled all of these things, now you've built a template for what kind of reporting it is you're going to deal with. In the private sector, there's specific reporting for shipping and receiving. There's special criteria for reporting on email servers, and the list goes on and on and on. So, but this is the origins of how all of that stuff got built to begin with. So it may be asked whether the House can be in possession of two motions or propositions at the same time, right? So, again, if you have a finding of fact or a conclusion of law, one requires one side of the House or the other. This is where we get into the potential. Maybe we need a joint committee, right? We need representatives from both the House and the Senate in this particular oversight committee. One to take the Senate side over to do the Senate work, one to take the House side over to do the House work, right? So, I mean, this is why these things work as they work. So if you're going to do it, by all means do it. Just do it logically and do it comprehensively. Let's see here. I'm going to skip around here a little bit. When a question is interrupted by a vote or of adjournment, it is thereby removed from before the House, and it does not stand. I think that's ipso facto. I think that's actually supposed to be an S, but it is okay. Yeah. Before them at their next meeting must come forward in the usual way. So when it is interrupted by the order of the day, such other privileged questions, also is disposed of the main question, right? And of course, there are the previous question, the postponement, or of course the commitment. So remove it from before the House. So kind of the short version is what we're establishing is the trail, right? The process when you take your document into the clerk of the Congress and it goes up through the parliamentarian and gets distributed to the members, right? That's that. I mean, we already know that's how it works. And having done that job, right? Well, fundamentally and principally, it stands to reason why I would know how this stuff works. So, without going into all that, now we can get into something called an equivalent question. So that's why I said there's a lot to questions. You think it's a simple question, right? Well, there's no such thing as a simple question, especially when you're talking about findings of facts or conclusions of law. Which, by the way, Kirk, did we ever figure out how the hell you have a contract for divorce or a action for divorce without a contract of marriage.
No, well, other than, you know, Idaho Constitution specifically says there shall be no special law or special proceedings for granting divorces.
Well, that
And the
seemed to be
initial cause of action states in there that, oh, well, this is a special proceeding.
right. Exactly. So that seems to be an equivalent question, doesn't it?
Right.
So, just to kind of give you guys an idea
How do you
of,
have an action for divorce without a marriage?
yeah, there
That's
ain't,
a pretty damn good question.
there's no contract. There's nothing to enforce. Oh God.
Yep.
So yeah, to bring that under parliamentary inquiry and an equivalent question, right? The equivalency being just what you just got done saying. Well, the law says this can't even exist. So can you explain how it does? you, know,
Hmm.
you guys are making my brain hurt over here, right?
I know, right?
So
Literally.
right.
People
If
don't
on a
get it, but
question,
it really does make our brain hurt when we read some of this stuff.
I know, right? So
Like, what the hell are you talking about?
right. So your question for rejection, right? Hey, would you reject this? Basically,
Yeah.
take this and take this and stick this on the slow boat to your anus, right?
Yep.
So if a question, if on a question for rejection on a bill be retained, it passes, of course, to its next reading, right? So something so seemingly nuts, you know, to know and understand the process of saying, well, this should have never been accepted in the first place. This should have been rejected from the word go. So hence the expungement, right? So,
Yep.
and of course, where questions are perfectly equivalent, so that the negative of the one amounts to the affirmative of the other, right? And leaves no other alternative, the decision of the one concludes necessarily the other, which is fundamentally why I put that code in the center of my litmus test, right? Which was 0 times 0. So I don't know if you know anything about coding, but if you run through a process or, I don't care if it's a boot string or whatever, if there's no error, there's no error in the code, the message you get is 0 times 0. So, you know, to me, it was just as simple as, oh, yeah, well, I've seen that so many times, it scares me. A bill originating in one house is passed by the other with an amendment. Okay. What's the amendment? A motion in the originating house to agree to the amendment is um, negatived. Do these result from this vote of disagreement, or must the question on disagreement be expressly voted? The questions respecting amendments from another house are first, to agree, second, to disagree, three, recede, or fourth, insist, and fifth, to adhere. Okay, so again, there's actually a flow chart for this. So let's get into the flow chart. In the first, it tells you to say, to agree. The second is to disagree. The third is to recede. The fourth is to insist. And the fifth is to adhere. Okay, so this is the criteria on, with reference to, whatever the question is in the affirmative or the negative. So for example, if we're going to adhere, just for the sport of it, you may then either recede or insist. Consequently, the negative of these is not equivalent to a positive vote the other way. It does not raise so necessary an implication as to or as may authorize the secretary by inference to enter another vote, for two alternatives still remain, either of which may be adopted by the House. So, you know, again, whether, once you get to step 5, right, it could still go either way, is pretty much the short version. So you have to go through all the steps. That would be due process of law, right? So, because remember, we are talking, how many times have you guys heard this very same, you know, uh, I call it just, you know, BS referral or BS kick to the curb. Oh, that's a civil matter. You ever heard that? It's a
Is it,
civil matter.
are we talking something about criminal in nature or civil in nature?
You're right. Yeah. So, tell me a little bit more about this civil matter here, will you there, bro? Because,
Yeah. So if I punch you in the mouth, is that civil in nature or criminal in nature?
oh, God. We talk about go on for days with something like this. So now you can get into division of the House. Okay. This is why I specifically said, well, let's avoid the division of the House and go straight to a joint committee. But in the sense that there would be a division of the House, the affirmative and negative of the question having been both put and answered, the Speaker declares whether yeas or nays have it by the sound, if he be himself satisfied, and it stands as the judgment of the House. Oh, there it is right there. Right. So this is civil due process in a republic. Right. So this is how you make that civil due process work for you, right? Not against you. So this is why we said, well, for us to come out and teach you guys everything that we know and how it is that we know it, this is the origins, right? Yes, it is a republic if you can keep it. You have to know how to do that, right? Because these are
Yep.
civil matters, right? It's a civil matter. Okay, well, civil due
Or
process.
is it
Yeah.
is this a political matter?
Well, right. But it's still a civil matter. I mean, the argument is a political argument, right? Hence my whole reference to the okay, who stepped on a Lego?
Right.
So, but you know, I mean, it to me it was so simple in that, even as far as how we're going to record the the yays, the yays or the nays. So, oh, here we go again. Petition that it be received, read. Oh, here we go. That reading means reading again. I feel sorry for that poor guy. We're just kicking the crap out of him for that. Oh, reading doesn't necessarily mean reading.
Right.
So, when the House of Commons is divided, right? Commons being of the common law. Oh, I put my little doodad went right over top of that. The one party goes forth and the other remains in the house. That word under my logo thing there is one, by the way, just so you guys know. This has made it important, which go forth and which remain, because the letter gain all the, what was that, indolent, the indifferent, and inattentive. So again, if somebody, indolent, I have to look up what indolent is. You can look
Right.
that up. So, but anyway, there's also by inference, I would say, it's going to be something to do with indifferent or inattentive, right? So, are they paying attention or are they not paying attention? Well, we already know they're not
Right.
paying attention. If they were paying attention, we wouldn't be having this problem. So, their general rule, therefore, is that those who give their vote for the what preservation of the orders of the house shall stay in, and those who are for introducing any new matter, is that on alteration or proceeding contrary to the established course are not to go out. So we're going to get into, but this rule is subject to many exceptions and modifications. So um, going into and explaining through these different cases, right? Some of this process has been tested, right? That's why there is different cases throughout this book, right? Whether it's Reed's, Mason's, Jefferson's, Roberts, you'll see this just as in court decisions, which I always thought was kind of strange. You know, this is not a monarchy. If it were a monarchy, we would put case precedent in context of the argument. But
Right.
hey, when in Rome, right? As will appear by the following statement of who go forth. So, these are the different motions, right? Starting with petition that it be received and read. Okay. Um, lie on the table, rejected after refusal to lie on the table, referred to a committee or farther proceeding, right? This is a key issue right here because of a lot of the things that we've already brought forth. Those have been referred to a committee or further proceeding, right? Hey, send this back over to the executive branch and have whoever actor, whatever acting agency has jurisdiction over this subject matter, check into this because I want to know what the hell's going on over here. So if we're going to have access to loss prevention, right? I want to utilize this process that corporations have been utilizing since their inception, right? And fix a lot of these problems. And I said, okay, I'm nothing if not patient. So, um, knowing and understanding it was just they just needed another media. Well, that's easy. I can certainly do that. So, um, let's see. Clause offered on report of bill be read 2 times. So, or yeah, what is that? Second time. So, this is once you've gone through for your first reading, right? Go through your investigation, then with the bill get read again, okay, and of course that would be for receiving a clause with amendments be engrossed. So once the investigation has been conducted, right, the bill is amended to include the reporting of whatever the investigation was, and then read again, then read second, and of course the third time. So is there going to be a third revision after the investigation be brought forth? Don't know. Depends on exactly what they find and how much of what they're looking for will they find on that round. So though you may miss them with the bumper, somebody will get them with the door. Trust me. It is what it is. Then of course we go down through and we follow the process to its conclusion. So, but basically, when you read the letter of the law, the Constitution, okay, this is why when we reviewed the emoluments of a court, the stand that they're the seat that sits next to the judge is a witness stand, right? Thou shalt not bear false witness. And of course, you have the right against self-incrimination, right? You're not bound to be a witness against yourself, right? That's the Fifth Amendment, fundamentally and principally. So that's why when you make your presentations before the body, before the legislature, okay, and doing that on paper, okay, accomplishes multiple things. The first one, of course, fundamentally and principally, is you brought forth a proper question before the body. So you've stated your claim in law, in the common law. So you don't even have to deal with the question of the idiot bar member saying, oh, well, we have case precedent that says blah, blah, blah about the common law, and we don't do it that way. And da 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 da. Da. And we've been doing it this way for 90 years. Well, you know, like my granddad used to say, just because you've been doing something a certain way for a certain amount of time doesn't mean you're doing it right. Get your head out of your rear end, kid, and fix it. So yeah, well, hey, guilty, been there, done that more than once. So I mean, it is what it is. So when you look out, for example, you see there's even a time frame, right? And in the time frame, it specifically mentions times of day, right? Or I'm sorry, there are specifics with reference to the 30th of January, right? So again, that's why I say the uh, time rules events. So that's why that's a fundamental principle or maxim of law, right? So if you're going to bring your question, make sure it's a good one because there's a lot of criteria to know to present it. That's why even in the news media, you hear them referred to as talking points, right? You've heard us discuss it as, on this day, this happened, right? And here was the result. On this day, this happened, and here was the result, and so on and so forth. But is it necessary for you to make that to the committee? Not necessarily. Those talking points, you can even submit those for furtherance to the investigative agency, right? Who's going to be the one investigating it? Here's my questions that I want investigated and answered. They're brought before the committee, they've been referred, right? And this is due process. It is what it is. So the one party being gone forth, the speaker, what is that? Numps? I'm sorry. No, okay, names. God, this book has been copied and printed so many times it's ignorant. So the speaker names two tellers from the affirmative and two from the negative side, who first count uh, those sitting in the house and report the number to the speaker. So, you'll hear a lot of times the presiding person in the committee will say the clerk will call the roll. Okay, that's basically what that is. And yays, nays, blah blah blah, and so on and so forth. I won't go into you know all of the rest of the intricacies of how that works. This is all out there so you guys can screenshot and read through all of this, but there's actually some specifics with reference to examples on this particular section because it does go in through, like, for example, here, the Constitution, however, has directed that the yeas and nays of the members of either house on any question shall, at the desire of the, what is that, fifth of those present, be entered on the journal, and again, that in all cases of excuse me, reconsidering a bill be disproved by the president and returned with his objections, right? Votes, yeah, the votes of both houses shall be determined by the yeas and nays, and the names of the persons voting for and against the bill shall be entered on the journal of each house respectively. So now again, what is it that we're talking about? Well, one of the things we're talking about fighting is these pretended acts of legislation, right? So knowing how to go in and deal with these things called statutes, right? These unconstitutional, anal oppressive statutes. So if you're going to bring forth a question with respect to any number of unconstitutional, anal oppressive statutes, codes, ordinances, whatever, right? As you saw what I did, I used the Peterson case as a basis to say, hey, these jackwagons don't even have legislative authority. What the hell is going on here? Right. So that gives standing, gives rise to debate the question, right? Well, yeah, if this stuff has no standing and the court has ruled that it has no standing, then shit, what kind of business are these guys doing? We need oversight over that. Okay, what committee, right? Yeah, and this is where these things start. Hasn't, when was the last time anybody did this? It's probably been 100 years ish, right? And as Kirk has said in Idaho, nobody's ever done it. Hence the opening list of questions, right? Do you know what a republic is? Right? Can you define it? Why or why not? Right? So if nobody's used it, well, it's there. I don't you think it's time we use it? So, again, this is just one of those things. So, when it comes to a finding of fact or a conclusion of law, if a court has already made a conclusion of law in that, for example, the Code Commission, right, they don't have any legislative authority. That was Peterson versus Peterson. We showed you that case. So we can say, well, under the statute, well, hey, guess what? That's not law. So you've been misinformed, right? And here's how you were misinformed. So even when well, under the clear and plain language, yeah, well, your clear and plain language has nothing to do with the letter of the law and seems to be fundamentally contrary to the letter of the law. That's what, page 25, section 16 or section 7. I'm sorry. Constitutional provisions are mandatory. I'm sorry, stand on a higher plane than statutes and are mandatory. So, this is one of the reasons why when it is proposed to take a vote by yeas and nays, the president or speaker states that the question is whether the bill shall pass, that it is proposed that the yeas and nays shall be entered into the journal, right? So the journal is what? The court of record. So once you have established your legislation, right, now there's something that can be enforced. So, for example, we have this lot and block versus meets and bounds problem. Well, once we finish the transaction and record in meets and bounds, and we take this legislation and say, okay, sheriff, go enforce, right? There's something for the sheriff to go enforce. So, again, it's just picking up where these bad actors came in and put these little tripwires, right? And broke the process and said, well, we're going to put in this extra little provision in here and we're not going to tell anybody about it. So they'll never be able to get to the end of the transaction. We can go in and take their shit because that's in essence exactly what they're doing, right? So that's why we go back to the beginning, right? And say, hey, did somebody tell you that, did they tell you when they first came to you that they were going to do X? No. Well, guess what? Here's the proof of that, right? So hence the reason why it was easy for me to prove my innocence. And of course, for those of us who act as inspectors general, it's very easy for us to do this because we've been doing it forever. So here's one. If any difficulty arises at any point of order, right? Because now we're talking about points of order, right? Not necessarily points of authority. During the division, the speaker is to decide preemptory, subject to the future censure of the House. If irregular, he sometimes permits old, experienced members to assist him with their advice, which they do sitting in their seats, covered to avoid the appearance of debate. But this can only be with the speaker's, I think that is leave, right? I think that's leave. Could be wrong. Um,
Yeah.
else,
Speakers leave.
yeah, else the division might last several hours. So, in other words, you've got somebody, a junior senator or junior congressman, who you've assembled into a brand new oversight committee. Well, again, there becomes a question of parliamentary procedure, right? The whoever the speaker, whoever the president of that committee would be, might say, well, I'm going to go ask a senior member, right, if they've ever run across this. If not, we'll go to the parliamentarian. So you adjourn and you go handle that parliamentary inquiry, right? So that's why I said there's different versions on how to, there's different ways to do this, right? So now, knowing and understanding, once you've mastered this process, by the time you get to a court, even the judge is looking at the attorneys going, yeah, don't pull that dead corporate entity bullshit on this guy. Yeah, not a good plan. You're playing Monopoly Corporation with this guy, you dumbass. So, it's just, yeah, it is what it is. But this is why knowing these things is so important, because by the time you get to it, which is what we're seeing now, we're seeing the high court saying, hey, I want to talk to the person with standing. I don't want to talk to some representative, right? Because there's a very good possibility I'm not getting all of the facts here, right? So, and then we get into sections, of course, which is title. And the reason I think she put this in here is because we were debating on this whole Title IV thing, right? So, is that an improper application of law, right? Those Sharia law titles, because that's not the definition of a title in a republic. Definition of a title is just as you see it here. It's just the title is just this. After the bill is passed and not before, the title may be amended and is to be fixed by a question, and the bill is then to be sent to the other house. So why is this thing they're claiming Title IV? Why the hell are they enforcing this as law if it's not a foreign emolument? Because that's foreign to our form of government and repugnant to the law, in so much as the letter of supreme law of the land and due process of law is concerned with respect to this word, title. Does that make sense? So,
Little.
yeah, I mean, again, it's presenting these, you know, not just to find that's a finding of fact, but it also presents a question of law, right? Whether it be a conundrum of law, that's neither here nor there at this point. The fact of the matter is it is there and it does exist. So why? Can somebody explain that? Right? So, this is knowing how to present the question and all of the history that goes into presenting that. And of course, under reconsideration, right? Why would they need to reconsider something? Well, again, we just gave an example of, you know, once you've submitted your process, it has been submitted to agency Secret Service, right, to go through the financial mechanism. And the Secret Service brings back, reporting into the finance committee and says, well, I'm looking at the transaction matrix and it looks exactly like this design model that was presented. We've got a problem, right? We need to reconsider submitted to what the hell's been going on in ACH, Automatic Clearinghouse, and of course the Fed, right? Trump has said multiple times, hey, the Fed is probably one of the bigger problems, nowhere near the solution. So, you know, this is why, he specifically said, well, hey, in other countries, their Fed is stimulating, right? Why are we not stimulating? So, and of course, they're paying less than zero interest. Why the hell are we even paying interest? Can somebody explain that? Right? So, it's just bringing forth some of these questions, right? Whether it be question of fact or question of law, or conundrum of fact and conundrum of law, which I seem to have gotten really good at. So, hence the whole reading means reading thing, right?
Only on days that end in Y.
God. dude, you need to take pictures, right? When
Right?
when you go in there and you say, can somebody explain to me how there's an action for a divorce with no contract of marriage? And I want you to take pictures of the looks on their faces when you bring that question up, because
Right.
that that's good. It's a Kodak moment.
Well, when I brought this up in court the one time, I'm like, this is an action for divorce. How do you have an action for divorce when there's no marriage contract? And the judge, she like literally almost jumped out of her seat. She's like, ooh, I want to hear this.
So even the judge was intrigued, right?
Yeah. And
Because
then, that's when I asked her about the fraud stuff, and she's like, oh, you might want to look at rule number 9 or something like that. And then, of course, the her attorney on the other side was like, well, objection, Your Honor, this is getting into giving legal advice. Well, yeah, that's actually the judge's job.
right,
After what I found in the commentaries on the Constitution under the right to the assistance of counsel,
right.
in the absence of any real assistance of counsel, the judge is actually supposed to assist.
Well,
Ooh,
well, and again,
to what? Ensure justice.
there you go. Because right, the person, right, the
Because the
living.
magistrates are amenable to the people,
That's right.
fundamentally
So
and principally in our form of government.
that's right. So I said, what law are you practicing? Right? Because this is a republic, dude. I'm full
Mm-hmm.
aware of what a monarchy is. And explain this Sharia bullshit since 1996. And that's when
Agenda 21,
that's when all I saw was assholes and elbows.
right?
So, but anyway, because knowing how this process works and my job being able to do every bit of this, right? No. You bring your happy ass down and you sit down right there, Bubba, right? I'm the one with the standing here. So the rule permitting a reconsideration of a question of fixing to it, no limitation of time or circumstance. It may be asked whether whether I think there is no limitation, right? So again, don't hand me this. Well, let's see here. We're going to get back to you guys in, you know, next next year on Juvember 56th of 2754. Yeah, nice try. No, you're not. Yeah, no, you're not. So we've already run through the process and we're already into the reconsideration of it. I mean, that's pretty much the short version of where a lot of this is right now. So now, of course, in Parliament, a question once carried cannot be questioned again at the same session. Ah, so again, they say, okay, well, what do you do if if something comes back and or it doesn't come back? That would be you reassemble them, right, and re-enter the question. So, because if you do make a mistake, right? Oh, wait a minute. What was that? Section 405, errors and mistakes.
Hmm.
We did a whole we did a whole 2 nights on correcting errors and mistakes. So, and this of course goes in on, you know, the um, way to go in and leave things open for amendments and whatever. So I'm going to kind of skip ahead here just a little bit, but I'm going to leave this up for some of you guys who want to take screenshots of this, because one of the reasons why we're doing this is to remember you're going to bring forth a question. You already know what the facts are. You know, I get, Kirk and myself, we get emails daily
Hmm.
full of facts, right? A little shy on
Yes.
the law side, but they're full of fact. So those would be good talking points to raise questions under. So,
In fact, I recently got an email, which is weird because that actually remember getting something like this information before, and I'll be coming out with this shortly. Once I decipher everything and how to lay this all out. But man,
Mhm.
is there some good stuff that's coming out of trying to think what circuit court that is. Um, it is okay. Napu. That was 1959. Giglio. Giglio. Oh, where is it? No, don't tell me I lost it.
You broke it.
Oh, wait, here it is. Did it say ninth? No, it's not the Ninth Circuit.
Right? Yeah, anywhere but the Ninth Circuit.
Oh, well, part of it's out of the United States District Court for Washington in Tacoma, Supreme Court. Title 42, 1983, cause 42, 1983, Civil Rights Act. It is a United States District Judge for Washington, so that's got to be ninth. But yeah, this is like 2019 stuff. So yeah, once I get this all laid out, we'll probably do it on a Monday Night Law, but some of it has to do with our rights to freedom of speech, and
Right.
this is good to see stuff like this coming out because, again, Trump's been putting out these judges, right?
That's
And
right.
he has instructed everyone, even by proclamation, that hey, we're going back to the rule of law here. We're going back to the Declaration of Independence, Constitution of the United States of America, and the Bill of Rights.
Mhm.
Start upholding the Constitution, the law, the rule of law.
Right.
And that was his instructions clear back in November? Yeah, December.
Yeah,
December of 2017.
easily.
Okay. So he's been on this since December of 2017 saying, start upholding the law, start
Mhm.
upholding the Constitution,
That's
start
right.
following the law, the
Right.
real law, the rule of law. So this is some of the good things that we're starting to see out of especially the federal courts, where Trump has put in these we'll be up to 187, 182 or something like that appointed
Mhm.
judges now. And
Yeah.
again, this goes back to where Trump was saying that the bar is going away. He removed the bar from the decision-making process of being the go-between between the president nominating and the Senate uh, doing a vote and appointing. Up until here recently, the bar used to sit in between and go, no, we don't approve of them. They're not a member of the bar. Nope, we don't approve of them because they're not a member of the bar.
Mhm.
Those days are over.
Yeah. Their little monopoly control over the courts and over due process is over.
Like
Right?
like Trump said, who are these people?
Yeah.
They're not elected.
Yeah.
Who are you?
That's right.
You're
What
not.
law are you even
Where in the
talking about?
Constitution do you exist?
Yeah.
Where's the law of your creation
Can you show that? Because again, those of
from
us,
the Constitution?
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Where's the process that you followed to create this? And can Congress create you? The answer is no.
Right. So again, this is why fundamentally and principally, right? Why I said, okay, to know a thing and to be bound to know it are regarded in law as equivalent. You want to play emolument corporation?
Yep.
Talked me right into it. You talked me right into that shit. So this is why I say stick to your defenses, right? Because, as we've said, you know, are you guys going to be as proficient with fractal calculus estoppels as we are here? Probably not, right? But, with a little bit of study, you could probably, I'm sure you could kind of fumble your way through it. But even if you don't get into all of that, you can certainly hit them with failure of consideration, fraud, or bad faith, right? If you have any form of a credential, I don't give a damn what it is. That's still an injury by fellow servant, right? Who the hell gave these jackwagons the right to alter the fundamental law in 96? 90 that mean you know what that means? That means that 4 of my 5 children have technically never been old enough to live in a republic. They don't even know what the hell it is. It's never existed in their lifetime. So how can they hate something that they've never experienced? Right? So, they say, oh, they're pissed off at America and pissed off at this and pissed off at the world and blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's fine, whatever. But they're not pissed off at the Republic. They're pissed off at this quote unquote representative democracy, or this, I call it the, you know, um, corporate, right? The dead entity corpse Islamic
Corpseration.
State, right? That's what this is it's a corpse Islamic State. That's why you hear the extremist side of this, the death to America. That's what they're talking about,
Hmm.
right? Yes, they want to come over here and cut your head off and light you on fire, whatever the hell else it is they do. Fucking, that's why they're that ideology is the bastard of the globe. Literally, it always has been. So, but the death to America they chant is the corporation, the corpse, right?
Right.
That's why that vessel, right? I'll give them a vessel. Send them out to sea and sink that shit.
Send it out there with your manly firmness.
That's right. So all 6 pillars of it. so, so again, one of the reasons you stick to your defenses. Why? Because whatever one does in defense of his person, he is considered to have done legally. Right?
Yep.
So if you're skittish about where to proceed and why to proceed from a specific viewpoint or a specific standpoint, you know, going in under your own defense or going in under defense, because, well, you can't do that. You want to bet? Here's a fundamental principle or maxim of law that says I can. So who are you to tell me I can't? Who are you to reduce me, to reduce my standing either in or at law for that matter? I could care less, right? Because at this point, that's all academic, right? So, because we've already done all of that. And that's one of the reasons why, I've created this little short list of these things that I've done and why I've proceeded as I've proceeded. So, again, that's why I say, you guys like us doing these things and want to help us, you know, um, continue to do these different PowerPoints and bring you know, these instructions to you so you can go in there and actually teach these people how to do what a republic is, right? The letter of the law says you have the right to do it. So if we're going to do it, let's do it the right way. We've already seen what happens when they stand outside the Supreme Court's door and carry on like stupid morons. Way to go, Chuck. Right? So, you know, help Kirk out. He's going to take care of Idaho. He's going to jump in on the Cali project and some of the stuff that we got going on out west. Specifically, that's because Kirk kind of covers the first 3 rules of real estate out that way: location, location, location.
Right. Would that be the territorial
Right.
jurisdiction, the
Hey,
locus,
there it is. So
not the state of being?
right there you go. The living one, not the dead corpse one, because we're getting rid of that bullshit.
Yeah, I may need a little extra support to go to California trying to get things figured out. Tony's
Yep.
actually having to move out of the place that he had there, so we're trying to figure something out.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's why I said, you got to be ready for plan B, C, or even D, so,
Yeah.
you matter of fact, I got to wait and find out, I got to reach out to these guys. That's pretty much what I'll be doing this week, doing my follow-ups, finding out where my ID numbers are. Um, let's see here. Oh yeah.
And by the way, that the case that I was talking about is actually the Ninth Circuit.
Oh, so it is the Ninth Circuit. Well, Trump did just go
Mm-hmm.
in and totally smack the crap out of the Ninth Circuit.
Mm-hmm.
So,
This is in the appellate division.
yeah,
So yeah, there's some good stuff coming out of there, out of that case that they cited. It's you and I talked about this on the phone yesterday. Man, did I go down a rabbit hole. One case leads to another case, to another case, to another case. And that's what happens when you do research, you got to go down these rabbit holes, and where all these other findings of facts and conclusions of law come from, and doctrines and governmental compelling interests, strict scrutiny standard tests, and yeah, takes a
right.
while. Takes a while to
Yeah.
dig through all this stuff.
Hmm.
I probably spent about
Among
4 to
other
5 hours yesterday doing that.
Yeah, I was going to say, by the time we got through all those cases, how many hours did you have in that, by the way?
Yeah, about 4 to 5 hours of sitting here just digging through cases.
Right. So again, that's why we say, um, you know, it's one thing to know your question. And to those who just joined us, I'll put up her short list because that was actually a really good short list. So I'm going to run through those again real fast. So when you're going to go in and you're going to talk about, you know, this is a republic and we're keeping it and all that stuff and blah blah blah, and you've read the book and all of that, you know, one of the first ways to just, and you don't have to be a jerk about it, right? So we're saying, well, the law says this is a republic. So, what is a republic? Do you know? Right? Can you define it? Why or why not? Are you aware of this state's user's manual? Right? Pick up the manual. Masons, Roberts, Reeds, Jeffersons, whatever. Did you know the fundamental law in the government was altered in '96 with Sharia law violating the First Amendment? And, because you're saying, I mean, how many times have you guys heard it? Well, we've never even read the Constitution. Well, do you know that that violates the First Amendment? Right? Do you know why? Right? If they don't know, that's fine. They don't know. Our job is to instruct them. So go instruct them. Right? So, um, what are we, collectively, going to do to remedy this most serious of problems? For me, it was I just want to get my happy ass back to work. That seemed pretty simple to me, but again, it is just that's what I get for being simple. Is there even an assembled committee for oversight on that, whatever that is? Pick a that, right? So, if they have this thing that they're using, right, and there's no oversight for it, you can say, well, fundamentally and principally, there's some examples of just some of the basic questions, some different things you might want to use as basic criteria, right? Rules of thumb, as it were, of how you want to enter into the process, right? Because you're going to have your remonstrance, right, with your appendix. Well, you need a question, right? A motion or a question of some form to enter into the body. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that would take what? One piece of paper with a couple of lines on it, right? I mean, it's a good question. You know, that's why I was
Sure.
like, dude, she's in my head again. Quit doing that, damn it. So, because that was, you know, I've been really, you know, beating my own brains out with, you know, how do I get these guys to even understand the complexity of that litmus test, right? To me, that's just me doing my job. They look at that thing and they're holding it upside down and flipping it all. Dude, what the hell am I looking at? You know, again, this is that, you know, moment for me because I'm assuming that these people know what I know, and that's a failing of mine, right? So, you know, thank God for the books. So, you know, it's a, you know, that's one of the main reasons why I keep, you know, getting into these different states, right? Different houses and different committees and processes. And, you know, it's just not only knowing what it is, but knowing how to do it. And, you know, I know you guys want to know this stuff, which is one of the main reasons why Kirk and I do this show, you know. So, you know, those of you who have helped us out, we can't thank you enough. I mean, there's
Yeah.
how many hours, you know, I got grounded this weekend, you know, from some of my clientele because they know all I do is a lot of times is this. When I'm not doing their stuff, I'm doing this. They grounded me this weekend. They're like, "Yeah, bullshit. You're taking time off, buddy, like it or not." Because you know, when I start going through and I start rattling this crap off from memory, you know, they're like, yeah, you need a break. Get out of your office, bro." So
So
that's
just I see both on Facebook and YouTube. Just getting over here to Facebook. California. We're Tony's in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, and he had a friend. He actually because Tony used to live in California, taught him how to paint houses and stuff, and many years ago. And I guess the guy's quite successful now. And so he said, "Hey, you know, I got this empty cabin up here. If you want to stay here." Was supposed to rent it to this other guy. Well, I hadn't heard from him in a while, and he finally called back and said, "Yeah, I just, been out of state, whatever, out of phone contact." Anyway, so yeah, Tony's got to find another place to stay, and uh, we were planning on having me come down there. So basically, and Tony's got a little puppy dog, so that makes things quite a bit more difficult to find a place. So
right, right.
he's got a great venue. It's he's down at an old school that's been kind of vacated. Basically, it's like 80% empty. But he has access to classrooms and stuff. And once school gets out, and we've been talking to a couple of people out of California, setting up the E-Clause franchise out of California. So,
Mhm. Right.
um, yeah, we just need to get the ball rolling down in California with E-Clause, and we were discussing about doing an E-Clause law seminar down there. An introduction to E-Clause and
Mhm.
what it does and how it works. So
Well,
for those,
why is loss prevention a benefit, right? Where does it come from and why is it a thing, right?
right?
Why do some of the largest corporations utilize this process and this whole department that is literally the backbone of their company called loss prevention? They have one, why don't we? Especially if
Well,
our job is to defend the integrity of the corporation and make sure that it does exactly what it's supposed to do, right? Everything from training to operations to finance and management and everything in between.
yeah. That
So,
this is the thing about the disinformation that's going on out there is, oh, E-Clause is a fraud, we're a fraud, and
yeah.
blah 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 blah. Well, it's funny
Oh, that
how California is saying, yeah, you can franchise your E-Clause corporation out here. Here's the paperwork.
Hmm.
filled the paperwork out, sent them a check, and they've cashed the check. Paperwork's on its way. You know, it's like, I've seen some of the comments here on YouTube and stuff asking about TCH and what's going on there. And it's like, well, you know, I just go back to those of sound mind, possessing logic and reason, shall come to a reasonable conclusion based in reality, or they're
Right.
insane. And in our civilized society, we shun the insane. So
That's right.
I hope that a lot of people out there catch on, right? Because some liars can be quite convincing, especially people like him, where he's a creative writer.
Hmm.
He's
Well,
very
and
creative with his words and his slander and his defamation of character.
and again,
So,
you know, it's those types of things that got them into trouble that they're in the first place. So
part of the
think
reason
about that.
of the separation is Timmy just can't keep his mouth shut. And that was the Warcastle separation was because he couldn't keep his mouth shut, but he doesn't want to tell people that they don't want nothing to do with him no more because he can't keep his mouth shut. That's why he was told to take everything down, because he was putting the play-by-play out there and jeopardizing Russell's life and everything that we had going. Or
Hmm.
I would say, let me rephrase that. Everything they had going. Because
Right.
yes, E-Clause did not have anything to do with bringing Russell in and any of that.
Nope.
I never made any claim that we did.
Nope.
E-Clause does E-Clause, and what they had going on with them is going on with them. So, and that fell apart, and that little piece of most valuable facts that the people that they're not that most of you are not being told the truth is that one of the reasons why they don't want to work with them anymore is because Timmy couldn't keep his mouth shut. So in my mind, that's the reason why Timmy's doing what he's doing, is because he's trying to make us look bad to try to save his face without having to admit what he has done is wrong. And then what does he do? He goes on a rampage and does exactly, you know, what I've been saying for months, to keep your mouth shut. You don't talk about this stuff online. But nobody wants to listen to me,
Hmm.
right? So,
Well,
you
again,
know,
we get it all the time, right?
yeah,
Kirk's
yeah,
working, I'm working. We don't have time to sit and manage our social media all day long, right? We're out trying to solve the problems that these other idiots created with their other nonsense. I call it shit made up. So, you know, um, the fact that I'm actually getting through and doing exactly what I set out to do, guess what? We're on it.
yeah.
So,
And and again, E-Clause did the
mhm,
filed a report in there and demanded an investigation into what's going on with Field. And these people are doing their job. They're
mhm.
investigating. All of us, every single one of us.
As a
So
matter of
make no
fact,
mistake. In the end, and like I'll just keep saying what I said clear back in November. This all ain't gonna go down like some people think.
right. Well, just not to put too fine a
Show
point
ain't
on
over
this.
till the fat lady sings, right?
Right. So, dating back to, and I've shown this before, and there's actually some that are before this, but definitively from July 6th of 2019, right? This was where I walked into literally the Secret Service and informed them, due notice of emoluments scam. There it is. And I submitted the paperwork, right? There is what was in the packet, right? All of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I did my due diligence. I performed the duties under the emoluments of my office, right? So that's why I said they want to play Monopoly Corporation with the guy whose job it was to run one of those. Oh, this is going to suck to be you, because
And,
I know right where every one of those doors, right? I know right where every one of those doors is.
and
I
so
sold parts to those guys.
to assert the claim that we never filed anything in the judicial branch, you're absolutely correct. But that
That's
doesn't
right.
mean that something wasn't filed in the legislative branch. What have we been teaching?
Well,
It's like
again,
this. Are these people even listening? How many
they're not.
hours, days, months have I spent with these people explaining?
Right.
You as well in Zoom.
Well,
You sat right there and explained some of this stuff for what, 2.5 hours. And it's like, oh yeah, we get it, we get it, we get it. And then they sit there and wonder, bitch and complain and try to make us look bad because we're not filing stuff in the judicial. Yeah, great. All that stuff, all those hours and days we spent with you at trying to educate you on this stuff went right out in one ear and out the other.
well, and again, because in my official capacity, right? My official capacity is to provide legal services to the United States government. It's right there behind me on the wall. So if I have to walk into a court, I can now do that in an official capacity, whereas before I was just in a personal capacity. Now I have an official capacity. See what I'm saying?
Mhm.
This whole thing of the bar association using its, I just call it whatever it is because it is the lower form of nobility, right?
Yeah,
Because it's a non-profit, not for profit organization. Um, yeah, with all the rivers of money running through there, you're going to tell me it's non-profit? Bullshit. The difference between what they do and what I do is I come out in the corporation and say, "Hey, stupid, what are you doing?" So, you know, the fact that I can go back to and literally show the origins of my job, I don't even have to walk into a courtroom because guess what? Now even judges are asking the same questions that I was asking. We talked about this the other night.
yeah,
You know, what standing does this actor have in the abortion case? Remember that was going on? What standing does this actor have? Judges are like, hey, I want to talk to the actual person now. Who's the one with the right to a cause of action here? And that is the right question. So, you know, we don't need I don't need somebody to stand there and tell me what I already know and what I don't know. Hell, I've forgotten more about the law in a republic than these jackwagons will ever know. So that's where it becomes problematic for them. So, and yeah, YouTube, yeah, the patriotic kick rocks clause. That's
yeah.
right.
Get prepared to get arrested for unauthorized practice of law. Yeah. Okay.
Whatever. I'm already authorized by Congress, you dumbass.
And
So,
I don't need anybody else's permission to claim and exercise a right. You cannot
mhm.
convert the claim and exercise of right cannot be converted into a crime.
No, can't.
And and again, the law is supposed to be written in plain English so the average man can read it and comprehend it. Why? Because the people are the sole arbiters of the law.
Right.
This bar shit made up is going down.
Well,
Apparently,
hey, even
you're not
there,
on the up and up of what's really going on in our republic.
here's the best thing here's the part that I love because there are how many good actors that were bar members that were disbarred for trying to do exactly what we're doing. Right. And, they were let into the shit made up. And we just said, I ain't falling for that. Kick rocks. Right. So, they're joining our side. And how many bar members have taken that card and said, you know what? Bullshit. I'm keeping the credential and I'm going to go incorporate because if something does happen, that means they would actually have to impeach me, right? That's a hell of a far cry from what the bar, oh, I'm just going to pull your bar card. The difference between that shit made up private sector only membership only club, they can decide who they're going to admit or not. When you're incorporated, they have to impeach you to remove you. Did we learn anything on how hard it is to impeach somebody based on shit made up?
Yeah.
Not going anywhere with that one. Sorry. So, the way to protect the court, the integrity of the court, was to show the actors who were acting, oh, you want a proper defense mechanism? Here, I'm going to show you the benefits of loss prevention. It's exactly what I did. So,
Yeah. That whole unauthorized practice of law. First of all, unauthorized
unauthorized
by
by
who? And what
who?
fucking law are you talking about?
Yeah, unauthorized by who? Who has the right to even make such a stupid allegation?
Bingo. What right to a cause of action do you have again?
Well,
What right
again,
of yours did I violate?
well, that's why I said you
Shut your
want to
pie
play.
hole.
Well, that's when they start with this licensing bullshit. Challenge accepted.
Right?
You know. So,
Yeah. I'm just glad enough people are waking up, right?
yeah.
We've been teaching this stuff for over 3 years now, right here. Well, maybe not on YouTube itself, but on Facebook we have
Yeah.
finally got some stuff upgraded, and now we're broadcasting on YouTube and Facebook. But
Mm-hmm.
For 3 years, over 3 years now, February of 2017 is when Chris and I hooked up and started working together.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been in several courts. In fact, Tony Pellegrino, you know, uh, I got to sit up at the bar with him, next to him for trial by jury. Yeah, because you can't license the practice of law.
Yeah.
Because the first time I went in there, they pulled that, and we filed the practitioner's judicial report, and made some, filed some comments and filed some paperwork there. And the next time I come in there, the judge was, "Oh yeah, come right on up." Yeah, because Tony asked again, "Can I have my assistance of counsel with me?" Yeah, sure. Come on up. Come right on up.
Mm-hmm.
There was no more of the, "Well, do you have a license to practice law in the state of Idaho?" No, that didn't happen. Not after we put them on notice of E-clause.
Right.
Because you can't license the practice of law.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you can't have a monopoly either,
No.
right?
Right.
So again, it was a simple argument. If I cannot monopolize telecommunications utilizing the AT&T case, if I can't monopolize telecommunications, you can't monopolize the practice of law, because you're definitely not even making the right argument. Not in a republic, you're not. Right? That's that whole monarchical, bullshit goes back to the First Continental Congress that we talked about. The two political parties they were originally the Republicans and the Loyalists, right? Loyal to the crown. Well, we now have the Republicans and the Democrats who are loyal to everybody else but the Republic. Jesus. Yeah. Anyway.
The thing is, there's been several bar complaints against us.
Oh yeah, I
We're
gotta start.
not members of the bar.
Yeah.
That bar shit made up doesn't apply to us.
Right.
We're not bound by that.
No.
I don't work for McDonald's. I'm not
Right.
bound by McDonald's policy.
That's
Sorry.
right.
Kick rocks.
Yeah.
That's just reality, folks.
Mm-hmm. Too bad, so sad.
I mean, if it wasn't for Trump, I'd say, yeah, we'd probably be in deep shit. Right?
Actually, if it wasn't for you guys who voted for Trump, we'd be in deep shit.
Right.
But we would all be in deeper shit than just us, because chances are we'd be out in foxholes with guns and doing other shit by now. which has nothing to do with really E-Clause or Kirk's Law Corner. But,
Oh,
you know, um, so anyway, that's why I said, I mean, for if these guys want to get pissed off because we want to come out and explain to you guys the history of how to present a question before the body, let them get pissed off about that. Go ahead. I dare you. So, you know, just keep talking their shit. Let them keep
mhm.
talking their shit because guess what? The more they talk it, the deeper the hole they dig themselves. So, that's what I said. Hey, I don't mind taking a couple of punches here and there. Are you kidding me? I'm a big son of a bitch. You think you're going to knock me on my ass? Go ahead, try it. I dare you. And not happening. Not happening. So,
Yeah. Well, there's definitely been a change in the administration of government.
big time.
Big time change.
Mm-hmm. So,
And, I'll just say it. Chris, we've been working on this together, but the paperwork you filed and how you did this and the way things have been going over the last 3 years,
mm-hmm.
I know you could see it in the videos from very, very, very beginning when some of this stuff was coming out. And I'm like, I'm kind of a skeptical guy. I need more evidence. I need more evidence. Here it is 3 years down the road. And, I still always remain skeptical, but I have to admit there's, you know, factual things that Chris has filed.
Mm-hmm.
This was filed here and this was the result. Well, nobody even knows that this was even filed over here by Chris. I mean, there's some things that we've showed on the show, but being here side by side with Chris and working on this project for 3 years now, I'm seeing the changes and the effects
Mm-hmm.
of the work that's being done.
Right.
So again, which is why we're trying to teach the people how to utilize um, our rights, claim and exercise those rights
Mm-hmm.
and follow due process of law.
Right.
You know, we didn't write the law, right? We didn't write the Constitution, but we sure in the heck have picked it up and read it word for word, and we're following it.
Yeah.
Imagine that we're getting results. And the ultimate question, which seen here again earlier, is well, how long is it going to take? As long as it takes. You can't. I can't. I cannot directly answer that question with a, oh, this will be done in 6 weeks or this will be done in 6 months. When they get to it, that's one of
Again.
them round to it's
Right. So
right.
again, let's
It'll
let's
be it'll be done when it's done.
right.
But
So
look at where we're at now, and they're still talking about the election fraud from almost 4 years ago.
that's right. So one of the
Okay,
main
so
reasons you don't
it's going
get
to take some time.
yeah, well, you don't get to the position that I've gotten to, which is granted standing, right? In my capacity, right? I stay in my lane. I've shown what my lane is, right? I'm not in there bothering them. I'm not in there busting their chops, right? I'm
Mhm.
reactive as far as the court is concerned, right? Because I know that this started in the legislature and I'm going into the legislature to fix the problem, right? So, you know, this is why it's problematic for these idiots that are talking shit about us because we've already been granted standing. Here's the mandate. This is from when? September 18, 2018. Stephen's birthday of 2018. So, you know, don't tell me that we don't know what we're doing if we're being granted standing against the bar, because that's specifically what this company is designed to do. Stand against foreign emoluments. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8, the letter of the law, and the 13th Amendment, not the Slavery Amendment, I'm talking about the original 13th Emoluments Amendment, right? that it comes forward out of the Articles of Confederation. So again, what do you need for practice? Look at the law. Look at the hell, look at this, look at the court, the rules of the court. You need a knowledge of law, knowledge of history, right? Licensing and credentials is optional. The fact that I have those, well, and all of mine are verifiable and they're little bar cards. You have to call up their little private club and, oh, here's one of my other favorites. Offices of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. They have how many members? How many different times has this have any specific bar member changed from one firm to another, and they change the contact information, right? They use their first letter of their first name, then their middle name, and then their last name. Or sometimes they'll just use a first initial and a middle name, won't even put their last name. You'd be surprised the shit that I've seen in doing audits of these bar records. You know why? Nobody but me has ever gone in and said, hand them over. So this is what auditors do: crawl up their ass with a fine tooth comb and give them a little bit of rectomology. So
Wrecked him, hell, damn near killed him.
damn right. So
I go back to Office Space, and TPS reports, but loss prevention comes into Office Space and everybody freaks out. Oh my gosh, am I going to keep my job? Am I going to keep my job?
yep.
I hope I'm doing a good enough job. Well, there it is. Go watch Office Space and learn what loss prevention does. Right?
Yes. Now that's the comic relief version of me, but
Right.
there is some truth to that show, I will admit.
I know.
So, but anyway, I digress.
And I'm just saying, I made the correlation after meeting you and learning a little bit about loss prevention here. And it's like, wait a minute, that's Office Space, and even big corporations. Oh, loss prevention's coming in, like in the real life here,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody, oh, we gotta get the inventory set up in proper order, and everything's got to be perfect. Loss prevention's coming. It's like, what? So, in my personal experience in real life, working for different corporations, I've had the term loss prevention thrown around, and everybody starts freaking out. It's like, what
Mm-hmm.
are you freaking out about? Are you doing something that you should be doing? And now that somebody's coming in for some oversight, now you want to get straightened up? Funny how that works.
Right.
What are the losses we are preventing? Well, the law, our rights. We are preventing the loss of our rights,
That would
the
be
loss of due process of law, the
that would
loss of
be
taxpayer dollars.
the
Paying
Republic.
these jackwagons to trespass the law is not
Mhm.
lawful.
Well, I say the loss of the Republic, right? And there are those who have argued we lost the Republic in 96. Well, that doesn't mean that I can't find it and say, hey, dumbass, do that. I'm going back to work. Call me if you need anything, right? And that's exactly what we've been doing, right? So the Republic is never gone, it's always there. You just got to know how to find it, and you got to know how to access it, and you got to know how to use it. Well, that's why we're doing these PowerPoints, right? Because this is exactly how to use the Republic, right? So when you're granted standing, okay, make sure you prepare a question. Don't make it so ridiculously crazy that they're going to look at that and go, yeah, I made that mistake with that litmus test. Talk about the ideas that sounded better in your head.
Right?
To loss
Short,
prevention guys like myself, that makes total sense.
short, clear, concise statements of facts, not
Right.
opinion, not your feelings.
Well, and again,
Stuff
that's
that
why
you can actually prove.
right. So
And it should be with the evidence should be self-evident.
right. So let's look at this thing, right? There's a lot of shit on that page, right? I mean that's not small potatoes there, right? So, you know, this that's why I said to me this was just as simple as the math, right? Negatives and positives, venture capital versus virtual capital. What law are we talking about here? What version of government are we talking about? Because fundamentally, principally, mathematically, the Republic is quadrant one, Islam and the bastard children are in quadrant four, right? The political arguments, right? The positives and negatives, that's the political argument. I mean, it is what it is between the Republicans and the loyalists, which are now Democrats. So,
The
hence the
KKK.
reason, right? Well, hence the reason that the Democrats are now divided with the socialists, quadrant four, right? So they're calling themselves the socialists. Oh shit, here we go. So here we are in quadrant one, just sitting here rolling on the floor laughing, right? Because everything in the lower nobility is literally falling apart. It's collapsing under its own weight, right? It's this, we've already drained the swamp, right? Well, now it's drying up and withering away. So, but whether you know and understand what coordinate geometry is or not, okay, for the fundamental principles of coding, just for an example, I'll give you guys a preview. This code, 0 times 0, that's right there in the center of this document for a specific reason. Anybody who does anything with coding knows and understands. If you've created a system and the system works correctly and boots properly, and you go through and you want a reporting on that, this is the code that the machine spits out, 0 times 0, right? Hence my joking tic-tac-toe, So that's why, to me, even the code is just kind of duh. But again, I have to remember shit. Not everybody knows the code. Oh, man. So, I get it. This is just my problem, one of my inherent difficulties. And I know it is I've just spent too many years doing this job. So, so I hope that clarifies that for you guys a little bit, because I've actually had many a question on what's the 0 times 0 mean. So, but it's a good question. Seriously though, dude. I mean, if they don't know what
You
code
can't
is,
get nothing from nothing.
well, that's right. I mean, fundamentally and principally, but why would it? Why would you even write such an equation if that we are fundamentally and principally know that 0 is 0, right?
Right?
Well, how do you codify 0? Well, here it is in the system. This is what a system recognizes code as. So, you know,
Is it a 0 or is it an O?
no, it's 0 times 0. I know what you're doing there, Mr. Word Salad.
Right.
Bastards.
Uh,
So, do you think
what's your
we've
phone number? 208. No, it's
row
208.
8, right? So,
One's from the alphabet and one's from the numeric alphabet.
right. So,
They're all symbols.
you betcha.
Anyways, so yeah, let's to shut this down for the night. And
Yep.
I know there's other people wanting to watch something else that's going on out there. So
Right.
much love to
Start the
everybody out there.
aftershave.
Thanks for the likes, the follows, and shares out there on Facebook and YouTube. Do the thumbs up and get subscribed there on YouTube for when we go live. Same thing on Facebook. If you go in there and do the follow and see first and get notified when we go live, that'll help. I know that some people have said I didn't even get a notification you guys went live and I'm subscribed. So
Right.
Facebook
It's a little
censoring at its best, right?
right.
So at least we haven't been kicked off of Facebook or YouTube. So
Yet,
I
operative
mean,
word here is yet. So,
technically speaking, I've had one strike on YouTube quite a while ago,
mhm,
and one little thing on Facebook in 3 years. Never been shut down on
right,
Facebook or YouTube. So clearly, we're doing something right.
right.
So
So, and
despite people trying to complain about us or whatever, you know,
well,
each
again,
their own. It's up to you to decide.
there's a
We're
reason
just,
we're in, multiple countries around the globe, right? So, if we're in multiple countries around the globe, there must be something substantive as to what we're teaching. Here's also a fundamental fact and principle of law you won't get here on Kirk's Law Corner. We're never going to tell you to go out and commit an act of violence, hence domestic violence, right? Domestic insurrections. Remember the whole Chuck Schumer thing? Standing out in front of the court and naming 2 Supreme Court justices by name. You're going to pay the price over there. Yeah.
ooh, I
Yeah.
saw that.
Oh, dude. Oh, he has excited domestic insurrections amongst us. That language is from the Declaration of Independence, right?
Well, it's
So
in the Virginia Declaration of, the Declaration for the Cause and Necessity of Taking Up Arms too.
just saying. So again, if they're going to be inciting violence, they need to be stating it correctly. They're inciting domestic violence. Why are
Yes.
they not saying it correctly?
Well, that's because they don't want to.
Speaking of questions and things to ponder, we're going to leave people to
Yep.
ponder till Wednesday night live. Um, we that's always one fun little fact,
Mhm.
finding a fact and conclusion of law, right? So
Yeah, they don't want to use the proper term of that is domestic violence. Domestic violence has nothing to do with family.
not a damn thing. That is
Nothing.
Sharia shit made up. What it is.
Yep.
It is what it is. So,
Article 4, Section 4, right there. Yep.
mhm,
We've showed it on the show several times now. It's in paperwork that's been filed in court that domestic violence is internal insurrection. Luther versus Borden,
right?
showed the case there that domestic violence, falls anything under Article 4, Section 4 there is a political argument, not a judicial one. Wait a minute. That would mean the entire judicial branch does not have subject matter jurisdiction over domestic violence. End of discussion.
Right.
There's no debate here because it specifically
Mhm,
says in Article 4, Section 4, upon application of the legislature,
right.
and if the legislature cannot be convened, the executive for
Mhm,
domestic violence,
that's right.
not the judicial.
Nope.
Legislature and executive has nothing to do with the judicial branch
That's right.
because it is a political argument, not a
Not a
judicial one.
judicial argument. Right.
And the court
So
cannot take jurisdiction where it has none.
that's why I
That would be
said.
an usurpation of power,
So when they tell you it's
trespass
a
of the law, an emoluments violation,
Mhm.
felony, fraud.
So when they tell you it's a civil matter, learn the civil process. Pretty simple to
That's the
me,
thing.
right?
All of it's a civilized process. It's a
Well,
civil, everything is civil.
it's
It may
supposed to
be
be. It's
criminal
supposed to
in
be.
nature or civil in nature, but
Right.
it's all supposed to be a civilized process
That's right. So learn the book.
pursuant to the rules of the common law.
Right. There you go. That's where you find it. Right there. So
Mhm. Just saying.
on that note, everybody, well, it looks like we're pretty much done for the night. And stop in, join us from the after show for a little while. We're gonna hang out and shoot the breeze after I go get rid of my 50 gallons of tea before I drown in my teepee. And my little nod to Pocahontas out there. and her failed presidential campaign. Oh, too bad. So sad. I should have that right here. Anyway, it's enough of that.
All right. Much love, everyone, and hope everyone had a wonderful night. And we will see you on Wednesday night.
Good night, everyone.